Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Let me just this out about now.
Wait. I think I'm arguing affirmative, aren't I?
Yeah.
What you said?
I'm arguing the affirmative, not TJump.
Okay, that it's not true.
I'm arguing the affirmative that it is true. Also, my name starts with a 1. That's why you wouldn't have been able to tag me.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yes. Oh yeah, and then TJump said it isn't. So, TJump, you're recording, right?
Yep.
Okay, everything's all set. All right. I guess you guys could begin.
Yeah, I don't know if you've prepared anything. I do have a bit of like a couple-minute opening statement, if that's okay.
Go for
it. Though the motion is quite vague, I appreciate that it leaves us a lot of latitude as to what issues we might explore. You probably don't know much about me, but I always prefer sincere dialogue to juvenile jostling. What I'm looking for today is an insightful conversation, not to win. And in fact, I do not really expect to win because I've set myself a relatively difficult task. I'm defending the truth of religion, despite the fact that I myself am an avowed atheist and have been all my life. In addition, I typically deploy a critical perspective towards dogmatic institutions. Yet I cannot abide by the notion that religion is just so much ado about nothing. The reverence religions have commanded throughout the ages is evidence that whatever is contained within these sacred texts has proven deeply meaningful to a vast number of people. Some adherents even feel that their religious tradition encodes some of the deepest truths of being. Can this really be dismissed as mere fancy, or might we be duty-bound to investigate such things more solemnly? The view which I will be defending today is that although religions are obviously not simply true, neither are they simply false. Religions instead contain secret insights into the nature of reality, but these pieces of gold are mixed with so many common stones in a river of voices that echo the original stories. Yet, the river of voices tends to drown out the originals, and through the passage of time, the true meaning of the tradition's founding insights is gradually forgotten as it passes down the line in the game of broken telephone. This problem is compounded by the fact that even before other voices begin to drown out the original, the prophet himself had to translate his mystical revelations into language which his fellow man would be able to understand. In so doing, he commits himself to teaching them how to live and how to worship the transcendent, and as he gains influence, the ego gains power, and our prophet begins to tailor his teachings to the circumstances which confront him in life. So he builds his blindness into his message, and this corrupts the teaching more than his followers ever could. In spite of this, those original fragments of truth can still be discerned by those who have eyes to see. Religion is not simply false, and although it is not simply or literally true, it contains truths which are more profound than literal language is apt to express. These truths are founded on transcendental intuitions, and therefore they contain fragmentary glimpses of such mystical secrets, encoded in various ways throughout the teachings of any particular prophet. In addition to this, the stories of the prophets encode significant moral, psychological, and sociological maxims or truths, which help us to live our lives more effectively. In this way also they are true, in the sense of there being effective philosophies of life. In conclusion, religion is not simply true, but it is instead deeply true.
That's it?
Yep.
All right. So the topic is religion true? Truth is that which corresponds to reality, and none of the religions correspond to reality. Therefore, no religions are not true.
Well, does correspondence to reality require like one-to-one literal? Yeah, surely. I would offer some of there's various ways that we use the term truth. It's actually quite a versatile term. And there are a number of conditions under which we're willing to call something true. One of them is it's founded on truth. Another one is that it contains truth or fragments thereof. Another one is that it communicates a true or useful message or meaning. And the fourth one, which seems to be the one that you're more leaning towards, is that it's free of falsehood, as in completely free of falsehood, as in 100% isomorphically identical with reality or something.
No. So by truth here, what we mean is, do the people who hold the ideology to which we are discussing, how do they use the word? When they say religion is true, what do they mean by that sentence? So if Christians say religion is true, that means there's literally a God, there's literally a heaven, there's literally a Jesus. That doesn't mean everything in the Bible needs to be
I think
literally true.
it means a number of things. Like, they don't just mean that certain tenets of the faith are literally true, although they mean that also. They also mean some of the other things that I said, that it's founded on truth in the sense of quote unquote divine revelation, right? That it contains like fragments of transcendental insights into the nature of reality, right? And that it contains like useful moral intuitions or rules, or however you might think of them, that help us to figure out how to live in the world.
No, essentially no one uses those terms. So if you go up to any church, any religious institution and go ask them, is religion true? And they say, yes, religion is true. And then you ask them, by true, do you mean it has some useful principles? Or do you mean that the God actually exists ontologically and actually created the universe? And you ask them, so if God didn't exist and he just contains useful principles, would you still call it true? Almost universally, they're going to say, no, that doesn't count as true. That's not true at all.
Well, they're definitely going to make the distinction between what they were saying before, which is that it's true in both ways, right? And in the hypothetical, if it were only true in one way, surely like that warrants a shift in how you're qualifying how true is it, for instance.
No. They
right?
would all say the second case, the case that the God does not exist, but it has useful principles, their religion would be false. They would say that is false, not true. It's not true. Like pretty much any church, go to any church, you can just ask them, if your
Yes.
God does not exist, but it still has useful principles, is your religion true?
Yes.
They're like, no, it's not.
Oh yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but like, are you talking to a simpleton religious believer, or are you talking to me? Because like, yes, it may indeed be true that like in the absence of the commitment to literal truth, the many average believers wouldn't consider it reasonable to continue identifying with their religion.
Well, that's
yeah.
the topic. So like when you choose a topic of
Well, no,
debate,
yeah, sorry. My point is that like I think we can both agree that it's obviously not literally true. So then my question is, okay, if not literally true, is there a sense in which it can be considered true? I think that would be a more interesting conversation.
well, so just to clarify, in the topic of a debate, the title is used with the most commonly used meanings of those
Oh
terms.
yeah, I agree.
So given
Yes,
the
but
most
if
commonly,
that's the
just
thing is,
one sec.
Mhm.
Let me finish first. So given the most commonly used meanings of is religion true by the majority of people who believe in religion, we would both agree, no, it's 100% false. Like there is no God
yes,
there.
and if you'd like,
And then
of course, and
so
if you
just
debate
and then we can shift
then
to the second conversation, which is there some other sense of true that we can talk about? That's fine. But just
well, I think that's perfectly salient as to the original question. Yeah.
no, it's not. It's
And
absolutely
like,
not. Absolutely 100% no.
I think it is.
So
It
the original
seems like
question
it
for
seems
any debate,
it
this is
seems
just a rule of debate, you must use the
yeah.
most commonly used language interpretation of the sentence for the title. So
Yes.
the only
Another
rational
rule of
interpretation,
debate,
no, the
of
only
course.
rational
Another rule
interpretation
of
of
debate.
one sec, stop talking for a second. The only rational interpretation of that sentence by everyone on the planet who's religious, which makes up like a large percentage of the population, is their God exists. That's the only
Okay.
rational interpretation of that sentence. Now you can say there's some Jordan Peterson kind of other truthiness to it if you want, and that's fine too, but it's not a rational interpretation for a debate title. For a debate title, you have to use the most commonly used definition. Now, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. We can move to the second topic, but this is just
yeah.
state that
Well,
on
I
the
think
front.
another important principle of debate is charity. So I already explained I'm an atheist. I tend to be critical of religious institutions. I would expect, since you're talking to me, for you to think, oh, okay, if you're arguing in favor of this proposition, but you're an atheist and you're critical of religious institutions, right? Then your sense of how it must be true is obviously going to be more nuanced than some like religious simpleton you might meet on the street.
Right, but that's a different topic. So again, the way debate
No,
works.
I mean, I think that's a perfectly valid reading
No,
of the sentence.
Well,
Is religion
this
true?
is slightly off topic, but we're talking about the semantics of debate here. For debate, we're talking to the audience. Obviously, we're probably not going to convince each other of anything. It rarely happens that the speakers ever convince each other. You're talking to the audience. And so the
Yes.
title of a debate is read how the audience would understand this sentence every time, in every debate, everywhere in the world.
Okay, if that's how you want to. I mean, I don't agree with you
Well,
about that,
this
but
is
sure,
law of how debate
we can do it that
works.
way. I mean, is there a book you're drawing from? Okay,
Yes,
I also
there are
I
many debate courses in every single college that literally say this. The
Yes,
whole point of the
yes,
title
I'm
of
aware. I've done
debate
debate in college, but
is
like,
to
what
express.
specifically? What specific
Wait,
reference?
stop.
I mean, maybe after the debate, you can communicate to me the
Stop.
specific reference.
If you don't know this, it's your fault. I have no interest in educating you on this. I'm just going to tell you it's a fact. If you don't believe me, I don't really care. So this is a fact
Yeah,
debate.
I mean, I'm happy to just
Stop
go along
interrupting.
with it.
Stop interrupting. So it is a fact and debate that the title is read as the audience will understand it. And so it's a fact of the matter that the correct interpretation of that is there a God, essentially. Now, for the purpose of the audience and of any rational debate, I'm going to address that topic first, which is the answer is no. And then we can go on to the secondary meaning, which is the
I mean, I think we've already
definition.
agreed on that. This seems like grandstanding. I think we've already agreed on that. So we can move on.
Because I'm a professional debater, it's literally what I do for a job. I'm addressing the title first, and then we can go on to the second thing. So this was not.
No, but I feel like you've actually said that. You've repeated it a few times now. Right. Can we move on?
It's not grandstanding. I'm just explaining to you this is technically the correct thing to do in any form of debate.
That's just what it felt like to me. But anyway, I'm willing to go along with your understanding. So yeah, I'll just agree. Okay, according to the usual, like, if we're going to judge the debate, you win just automatically.
Well,
fine.
It's not about this wasn't about winning. It's again, because I'm a YouTuber, people watch this and they read the title and what are they expecting? So I address the thing that they're expecting first, and then we can move on. So it's not about you. It's not criticism of you. It's just, this is the correct way to do things when you have an audience who's expecting a certain answer to that question.
I'll take your word on it. But yeah. So okay, again, if it's not literally true, might there be a sense in which we can say that it qualifies as being true in some respect?
I don't know what you even mean by that, because for me, truth means one thing: correspondence to reality.
Well, okay, I'll reiterate some of the modalities that people use the word true for. So, for instance, we might say that a fictional story has a ring of truth if it communicates some important insight about the way one ought to live their life, right? That is a common turn of phrase. So some of the modalities I listed before were we can call something true if it's founded on truth, right? If it contains truth, if it communicates a true or useful message, that would be the one I just mentioned with the ring of truth or whatever. And the fourth version is that it's completely free of falsehood.
Right, and I don't think any of those would really qualify under the definition of truth. From a philosophy background, truth is there's three versions of truth: correspondence, coherence, and foundationalism, and none of those would fit. Can people colloquially call it truthiness? Sure, but is that truth in any philosophical sense? No.
Sorry. I'm still talking about correspondence. I'm just saying it's not literally true. Do you think this is so are you of the opinion that a story or a metaphor cannot communicate something true, even though it is not literally true?
Sure. So like Harry Potter conveys many moral messages in it, but Harry Potter is not true. So even though the intention or message may be true or useful, Harry Potter is not true by extension.
Well, it's not literally true, right? And Harry Potter is an interesting example because it's not clear what the moral messages exactly are, but
there's tons of moral messages, like friendship, helping, challenging authority. There's tons of moral messages in Harry Potter.
Yeah, I think it's quite liberal to read those as moral messages, but sure. So you're saying you don't think that containing truth can ever suffice to saying that something is true?
Right, because you can have Harry Potter, or no, I mean, let's take Spider-Man. New York City exists. It is true that New York City exists.
Okay.
And in Spider-Man, it describes New York City. So there's a true fact, whether it's a moral fact or a fact of the universe, and it's a true fact. Does that by extension mean you can then say the story as a whole is true? No, clearly not. You could never say Spider-Man is true because New York City is true. And the same thing would apply to moral principles. Even if there's a perfectly good moral principle in Spider-Man, you couldn't by extension therefore say Spider-Man is true.
Yes, not simply, obviously, right? But is it true in a way?
Well, what isn't true in a way?
2 plus 2 equals 5.
Well, no, that's true in a way too. Taxi cab math, that's true in a way as well.
I don't know what that is.
It's a alternative way of doing math. It doesn't follow the same structure. Like, there's non-standard logics, pair-consistent logics, A does not equal A logics. Not the point.
Yeah.
The point is
I
there's
don't know
there's
that-
nothing. The only thing that you can say is not true in a sense is literal nothingness. That's about it. Everything else is going to be true
Right,
in a
yeah.
sense.
That I feel like you're kind of missing my point. Like, obviously, yes, everything's true in the sense in that, like, it's got some like tangible link to reality or whatever, right? But I'm talking about saying, so the story or whatever it is, right? True, right? As you said, corresponds with reality. That's what we call a proposition when the proposition pictures things as they really are. So if the story, right, pictures certain things as they really are, especially if they're things that are not apt to be given a truthful literal description, like we just can't figure out how to do it. To me it seems like pedantic almost to withhold the notion that there's a sense more than we might say of 2 plus 2 equals 5, right? That a story can be truer than that, for example.
Like 2 plus 2 equals 5 contains like the number 2, the number 5, a plus sign, and an equal sign. And all of those things are true. Those are correct numerical values that exist in the language of mathematics. And so in a sense, 2 plus 2 equals 5 is true because the aspects of the particulars being used are accurate particulars for the language, even though the structure of the sentence does not follow.
At that point, I don't know where we're getting correspondence with reality.
Well, the two part numbers refer
No,
to
but 2 plus 2 equals 5. How does that map onto reality?
So the 2 is a real number, the 5 is a real number, the plus sign is a real integral, the equal sign is a real representation of equivalence. So all of these, the pieces are
Well,
all
yes, but
real
the
pieces.
equation doesn't. But the equation doesn't map onto reality.
Right, exactly. And so this is why I'm saying this is analogous to Harry Potter or religion or Spider-Man in that each of the pieces, New York City, King's Cross Station, Egypt, those places exist just like the number 2 exists as an abstract object, even though when you add them together and say King's Cross Station has a platform 9 3/4, that's like the equals 5 part. It does not compute. So even though there are aspects of the story which are true, you can't say the story, which is the whole sentence 2 plus 2 equals 5, or the story of Harry Potter. That sentence is false.
I'm not. Yeah, yeah, I find this part of your argument kind of confusing, but I'm happy to just say, okay, you are of the opinion that communicating or like containing, let's say, moral truths or whatever, doesn't suffice something to be true. What about like if something like is, for instance, and this is really what I think religious traditions are, something is built up, so someone has an experience where they have like intuitions of the transcendent, right? And let's just assume for the sake of argument that those intuitions are true, right? Like they're true, they're representative of the actual deep structure of reality or something like that, right? And then over time, as they communicate this to their followers or whatever, right, a whole bunch of like law springs up around those intuitions, right, as a way for humans to integrate them into a common understanding, right? And that becomes a religious tradition, right? Like, surely the fact that like they're originally founded, like for the sake of argument, on truth, right, qualifies them in some way more than, for instance, we might talk about a fictional story. So, for instance, and the analogy here would be a true story, right? Like a fictional story based on true events or something like this.
How is that
Right?
different
You would be
from
more comfortable calling that a true story.
how is that different from New York City exists, therefore Spider-Man is true? Because it's founded on a true fact.
I mean,
New York.
it seems obvious that there's a difference between Spider-Man and a book, a fictional story based on a true story, right? Like when it's based on a true story, we're happier saying that story was true. That's actually a
Spider-Man
true story.
is based on a true story. Like
What?
all of
No,
like
it's not.
Spider-Man, yes, the origin of Spider-Man as a story was based off of the author's experience of being saved by a guy who was a normal human guy, and then he
Bro,
expanded that into like an actual superhero, just like the
that's not what
story
I'm
of
talking about, though.
Hercules and the story of Zeus and the story of Thor. These were like Hercules historically is most likely
I
a
don't
real
think
guy.
most people would be comfortable agreeing that the fact that he had some experience of someone being heroic is that doesn't suffice to say Spider-Man was based on that. Spider-Man is like a fantastical creation.
Yes, so that's usually what happens. You have a very mundane event happen, and that gets embellished over time and continues being embellished until it becomes fantastical. That's what myths do. So that's literally how all myths operate.
Yeah, but in the case of Spider-Man, it's not organic. Someone just decided to add fictional elements.
What I don't understand, it
No, and
seems
not
like you're
even, it's not
making.
even, that's what I mean. It's like, it's not even
I
clear
don't
that
under. Wait,
it's
wait, one sec.
reasonable to
I'm trying to
describe it
understand your
as
argument
like
here. So it
someone
seems like
adding, it's not even clear,
one sec, one sec.
it's not even clear that it's reasonable to describe it as someone adding extra elements because
I don't care about the
like
ad. I don't care about that. I don't care about it. So it seems like you're saying that there's you start with this new or the start with an actual thing that happens, some true facts of the universe, and then they build on this.
well, no,
No.
no. No, because that's quite mundane. Like as you said, the story you're relating it to, right, is like, oh, something quite like distant from the fantastical thing, right? Whereas my thought was that those original intuitions of the transcendent, right, if for the sake of argument they're true, right, that is somehow like I said, it's like a deep.
I'm trying to ask you a question here. So why would the level of distance from the starting fact make a story more or less true? Say Hercules, where a really strong guy lifted a rock, and then he embellished it to make it a really, really big rock, versus a guy saved another guy, and then they added spider webs and stuff. Why would one of those be more true than the other?
I didn't say that. What I'm trying to communicate is that the kind of the grade of truth that is
Yeah, I'm
contained
trying to
is
understand
of a
this
different
grade. Like,
order.
what is this grade? What do you think
Yeah,
is the
if you let me
grading
speak for a little bit,
system?
I'll explain. If you, yeah, like because I was already actually trying to explain this. So like when I'm talking about like the transcendental intuitions or whatever, my thought is that that's like suddenly being struck with insight into the deep structure of reality, right? So we like live in a sense in a world of appearances, right?
I don't
Physics and
understand.
science
So
is all
just
about.
I don't understand what you mean by the deep structure of reality as opposed to New York City is true. New York City exists. Like that's
Well,
about as
I
deep as
mean,
anything. Like,
metaphysics, for instance. Metaphysics, for
well, why
instance.
would a
Not
fact about metaphysics be different than a fact about New York? They're both true.
because metaphysics is more foundational.
What difference does that make?
That makes it. Well, my thought is if truth derives from correspondence with reality, right?
Yeah.
Then more foundational aspects of reality, deeper truths are in a sense more true because they're less, yeah, they're closer to the actual ground or whatever.
How is it more true that some metaphysical fact versus New York exists? Like those are
Because it has
equally true.
priority. Metaphysics has priority
It
over
doesn't make any
physics.
sense. It literally
Sure,
doesn't
it
make any
does.
sense. One, physicalism is
Absolutely.
metaphysics. So an entirely physical universe is still metaphysics, but that's a separate topic. So like the fact New York exists, that proposition is equally as true as God exists. If God, suppose God was real and that was actually the metaphysical grounds of being or whatever, saying God exists and saying New York exists, both of those sentences are equally true.
Well, no, one truth would be derivative of the other.
Wouldn't make a difference. They're still equally true.
It sure would. Yes, the derivative relation affects
One
how,
is not
in my
more
mind,
true there. There's not like a more
in my
trueness.
mind, it is. The
How?
derivativeness affects it. I just told you the derivativeness.
This doesn't make sense. So, like, supposedly, this derivativeness of something, you're saying a fact that's a more grounding level of fact somehow makes the story more truiness because even though both stories have added a whole bunch of fictitious stuff to them, one was grounded on a fact that's more fundamental. Therefore, it's more true. Like
Yeah.
what?
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes
That
zero
doesn't seem,
sense.
to me, it's puzzling that you'd be puzzled by that. That seems to make perfect sense to me.
Because it's taking a fallacious structure of an argument and saying if you apply this fallacious structure to the ground of all being as opposed to New York City, that makes it less fallacious.
Wait, what's the fallacious argument? Sorry.
Adding in like Spider-Man characters, adding in fictitious aspects, basing them off of a true fact, which is New York, as opposed to basing them off of a true fact, which is God or whatever. Somehow,
So again, I don't think the Spider-Man analogy is faithful to what I'm saying. Okay, so if a story, a fictional story, is like built the whole or most of the narrative is built up around something that really did happen.
Yeah.
Okay, that story, I'm happy to say, well, whether or not you are, I'm happy to say that story, like for example, the Titanic, is more true than Spider-Man is. I'm happy to agree to that.
so this is the part I'm not understanding. So New York exists, real thing. Crime happens
Oh
in
my
New
God.
York. Those are real things that happen.
Yeah, that's
And
one
from
part,
this,
though. We're talking about part-wise
right,
correspondence, and
So,
there's not
this is
part.
the part I'm trying to get. There's always a part-wise correspondence. We agree most of religion is false. We agree no God, no Jesus, no resurrection, no Noah's Ark. All of those are added in, saying there is
Yes.
a world flood. Complete bullshit. That's even worse than Spider-Man. Not even close. It's like
Yes.
leagues and leagues more silly. But because the content of the book is about the ground of all being, it's somehow more true than Spider-Man. This makes no sense.
Yeah. So it seems to me just obvious that like metaphysical facts transcend physical facts. Physical facts being derivative of them, right? They're true only in virtue of the metaphysical.
I don't see why this is relevant at all. I don't agree. I mean, physicalism is a kind of metaphysics, but it doesn't make a difference. I don't see why you think the hierarchy of things matter. So, like, if I say, um, let's say, my uncle Bob picked up the greatest rock in the world, like clearly bullshit. No, he didn't. That's dumb. He's not the strongest man. But if I say, the president of the United States picked up the greatest rock in the world, equally as bullshit. Doesn't matter the level of the person, or
Let
like,
me try and, because I don't, to me it seems clear, but I'll try and spell it out to you. Okay, so like when you talk about truth to you is correspondence, okay, I'm on board with that, my friend. I agree. Okay, my thought is, okay, correspondence is correspondence with like things as they are, existence as such, whatever that is, the thing as such, right? And it seems clear to me that like there are degrees of abstraction away from the thing as such, right? Like as you get more layers of complexity, even just in physics, right? You get further away from just existence. It's more and more, right? So my thought is like, and where as we think of as physics as like the most foundational like science field of science that we have, right? My thought is that the further down you go, the closer you get to the object as such, the more true your representations can be.
so. All right, so let's use the physics example. Let's say I see protons banging into one another and say, "Oh, protons banging into one another. I'm going to build a story off of this." And I build this story. It's about, I don't know, Bob and Joe were the protons and they have little lives and they speak to one another. Complete bullshit. We're just going to add this into the story. And I take it, and there's a biochemist. He's like, you know what? I like these chemicals, astatine and guanine. And I'm going to make some stories about these guys. They're named Bob and Joe. And we got these two Bobs and Joes. The one's at physics and one's at chemistry. Is one more true than the other? Suppose they have all identical facts, essentially,
No.
that correspond to reality equally as well, essentially. But one's just about physics and one's about chemistry.
Okay, so that if we're asking like because there's a sense in which the story like encodes observations of natural phenomena, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The two
So
chemicals hit each other and the two protons hit each other, and those are the facts that happened in reality.
yes, yeah, and the physical facts are more fundamental and in a sense more true, yes, than the chemical facts, yes.
That doesn't make any sense.
I think it does though, because like chemical facts, again, they're derivative. Chemistry arises out of the aggregation of physical interactions.
Yeah. Seems like this is a composition division fallacy, I guess. Like,
So the truth of chemistry depends on the truth of physics.
sort of. I mean, not really, but even if that was the case, it wouldn't make a difference. Like saying a proton and another proton hit each other, and saying a billion protons and another billion protons hit each other. It's the same set of facts.
Yeah. So, and the where it diverges, like from the analogy you're trying to draw, is that what the story, like in the religious intuitions or whatever, that's not merely encoding observational information, right? Instead, it's like form coming up with a formula for like, I guess, like one of the deep principles of existence or something like that. So, for instance, one of these deep principles. And by the way, one of the reasons I was happy to talk about like religion in general is I'm kind of fond of like perennialism. I don't know if you've heard of that, or like universalism, something like that.
Perennial,
Do you
like
know what that
something
is?
that happens every 12, 10 years or something?
No, perennialism is like the idea that like all religious traditions point towards the same thing, but they're different perspectives of it, or something like that.
Well, I definitely wouldn't agree with that.
Can I ask how come?
Because there's religions that are completely nonsensical, that completely contradict everything.
Such as?
There's a specific religion that says you should kill everyone.
What's it called?
I don't
Never
remember.
heard
I'd
of
have to
it.
Google it. Just to Google like the most evil or most asinine religions. There's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, I mean the thing about religion is anyone can make one. So, but when I talk about religions, I'm really talking about major religious traditions, like yeah, and we could talk about like what kind of scale qualifies you for that or whatever. But I don't think it matters too much. But so some of these deep hypothetical like deep facts of reality or whatever are, for instance, that there has to be some ground that is necessary, or that existence is a unity. Right, that's another one. Another one is existence is ineffable or nearly ineffable. Something like, so the thing as such, like inscrutable, which is something echoed in philosophy actually. And another one of them is often that harmony is a central aspect of reality. Right?
I don't think any of those are true, but what's the point of this?
You don't agree any of those are true?
No.
So,
Like,
this
chaos
is
is far more prevalent than harmony. There's no harmony, or harmony isn't.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that last one, but none of them, right? So, because yeah, so you believe that truth is correspondence with reality, right?
Yep.
But reality is something we only have indirect access to, right?
No.
How so?
I think therefore I have direct access to reality.
You have direct access to experience. Experience is like your body conjecturing what's going on in reality.
No, experience literally exists in reality, so I also have direct experience
Yes,
in
it
reality.
exists in reality, but
Right.
experience is like something conjectured by your brain.
Well, no, again, so there's one thing in absolute reality that I can know, I have access to. I exist. That isn't just a
Yes, that
conjecture,
exists.
and that's
Of
real
course,
reality. That's absolute reality knowledge stuff.
yes, but what you receive through your experiences, right? Your experience mediates between you and the world. You experience.
Right. So the things in the external world I can't be sure about, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I know I exist.
That's what I was looking for. Okay, so you think that there is a thing as such, an external world, right? And you also agree you can't be sure about those things, right?
Sure.
Okay. So do you think that we could ever be sure about it?
Yes.
How?
I don't know. There could be a new form of evidence that is metaphysical evidence that could give us absolute certainty about it. I don't know what it would be like, but it's possible. There's no logical contradiction.
Okay, so you don't have any sort of sketch. You're just speculating that it could be possible.
Yeah.
Okay. So all right, I can see maybe you might not. I mean, the thing about like, so the ineffability of being or whatever, that's something that Kant believes, for instance, right? And not just Kant. There's a whole tradition of philosophers who believe that the thing as such is ineffable.
Yeah, there's a lot of philosophers who believe a lot of silly things. That's not evidence of anything.
Okay. I mean, it's not clear to me exactly what's so silly about that, but sure. Okay, so what about existence is fundamentally a unity? You don't have some kind of pre-theoretical commitment to that notion?
No, absolutely not. Like the one in the many could be many things.
I mean, yeah, but you assume, for instance, that like I'm guessing if you were to hop in a spaceship and head somewhere else in the universe, that physics would continue to behave the same. Do you not?
No, like that's actually been proven false. Like,
You don't make that assumption.
no one makes that assumption. In fact, we
That
know
is
that's
remarkable.
false. So like we know gravity used to be different in the early universe. It used to be repulsive. We know that in
That's not what I'm
hypothetically.
asking. I'm asking about if you went somewhere else
Yeah.
in the universe now.
Right. So I was using, because space and time, same thing, space-time field.
Obviously. What do you
So like in
your
time,
point
if
is
there's at
that
any point in time, the laws of physics operated differently. That means they could also operate differently at a different location somewhere in space too. So if gravity was repulsive at the early universe, and we know that, then it could be the case it's repulsive somewhere else in the universe if we go there.
even though that doesn't match any of our observations.
It does match our observation. So again, we know
No,
it was
yeah,
repulsive.
according to our observations, physics, what our observations match up with our physical predictions, even in far, far away from us.
I don't think you're understanding. So we know for a fact, Guth's early universe inflation, gravity was repulsive. We know here is a point where it was repulsive. And so do we see anything like that currently with our current telescopes? No. Do we know a point where it was in the universe? Yes. Yes, we do. So is it possible to be that way in other locations? Yes. Yes, it is.
Yes. How do you think that the laws of physics can change? How do you think that can happen?
How? Because the quantum fields that govern them can fluctuate in different ways that can cause them to shift.
And do those quantum fields change? Like, is there a point where we reach something? Yes, no, I know they have fluctuations, but what I'm asking is, does the actual nature of how the fluctuations work, does that change?
Could. I don't know.
Could, of course. Is there you don't think that there's some ground where things don't change?
No.
Like just okay, but you think so? I'm just trying to pin
the
down.
Consensus in physics is randomness is an actual fundamental force in nature.
Okay, yes, but that doesn't actually explain to me, because again, so quantum physics, right? It's like quantum physics doesn't explain itself. It doesn't justify its own existence, right?
I don't even know what that means.
It means that we rely on physical laws to explain not only the behavior of objects, but how they have manifested themselves in the world, right?
I have no idea how that relates to the previous sentence.
Because the inference is that as you appeal to more fundamental principles, right, to explain change in your other principles, right, that at a certain point, the principles have to be that way for some reason.
No.
Then so just to be clear, either there's only really two options. Either there's an explanatory gap in your worldview, or you think that an infinite regression is plausible.
Well, there's actually three options, but brute facts are actually one of the main leading views. Brute facts is a fact that's true with no explanation.
Yes.
So those are perfectly fine. That's one of the consensus leading views. Infinite regress is another one, and that's perfectly fine too.
It's certainly not perfectly fine. It doesn't make any sense at all.
It's the consensus in physics. Whether it makes sense to you makes no
difference.
There's
an infinite regression?
Yeah.
That there's an infinite regression?
Yep.
I don't think so. Where do you get this consensus from?
Fundamental Attitudes of Quantum Mechanics by Schlosshauser. That's a poll of physicists about the different potential explanations of everything. Many worlds, multiverse, string theory, the infinite regression ones are the consensus.
Sorry, you just listed a whole bunch. You're saying of all of the various models.
The ones I listed are all infinite regression. So many worlds, infinite regression. Multiverse, infinite regression.
Not necessarily.
The most held views of these are infinite regression models. All of them. There are beginning models. They are the minority. Sean Carroll literally talks about this, that you can have models that have a beginning and then that divert in time in two directions, and that's fine too. They're very minority models. The infinite regression models are the consensus. There is no problem with infinite regression. It's a bunch of philosophers who have intuitive disagreements with infinite regression, but they don't actually cause any problems whatsoever with physics. They don't care. Infinite regression is the consensus right now of the majority of the views about origin of the universe.
Yeah, I would appreciate it if you could drop the link for that or whatever, because I find that very
a snapshot of foundational attitudes toward quantum mechanics by Schlosshauser.
Yeah. Although brute facts are obviously, as you said, an available position, in my mind, you have to have a good reason why something should count as a brute fact. Because in theory, you could just, that's essentially a catch-all way to get out of explaining anything. You could just appeal to anything as a brute fact.
Well, it's not meant as an explanation. It's a philosophical
No,
possibility.
of course it's not meant as an explanation. It's meant as an abdication of the responsibility to
Well,
explain.
no, there's no philosophical difference between a brute fact, a necessary being, and an infinite regression. They're all equivalent. It's a Grippus trilemma. There's
That's
not
not
like,
necessarily true. That is not necessarily true.
yes, it
There are
literally
many
is.
ways of thinking out. No, it isn't. There are many
This
ways
is
of
literally,
thinking of
this is
what's
called a Grippus
necessary.
trilemma. There are 3 grounding points for
Right.
all things: infinite regress, circular reasoning, and dogmatism. Those are it. That's it. Those are the 3. Everything,
Yes, I'm
all
aware of
knowledge
the
terminates on these 3. They're all
dilemma.
equivalent. They're all bad.
I don't. They're not all equivalent.
They are.
They're all. They're not.
They are. In fact, yes.
No, they're not. The whole point of calling it a trilemma is that they're mutually exclusive.
Yes, they're all equally as bad. Yes. So they're all
No,
mutually
not
exclusive. I
necessarily.
agree. They're different options. They're all bad.
Just because no one has yet produced a salient explanation of how one of the 3 could make sense does not mean they're all equivalently bad. You're just speaking out of your depth here. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, so if no one currently has an epistemic reason why one is not as garbage as the other, then currently, given our current knowledge, they're all equally as garbage.
I think that's a silly thing to say, but if you'd like to commit your reputation to it, fine.
There's no reputation here. It's like, hey, each one has found foundational errors, and people are trying to solve them by like combining them, like found herentism. I don't really like it, but it's okay, whatever. It just combines the 2 problems. Each one has a fundamental fallacy built into it, which is, I forget what they are. One of them is arbitrariness. I think that's the foundationalism one. One of them circularity, which is obviously the circular one, and I forget what the big problem with the infinite regress one is, but they all have problems, major problems.
Yes, they all have problems, but one of them will probably have solutions, though.
I don't, I mean, they could all have solutions. I don't know about that, but currently they're all equally as bad. None of them provide a compelling answer to anything.
Yeah. I mean, so if your standard for good or bad is just if currently they do the job, fine. But it seems to me that by projecting, oh, they're all equally garbage, you give the sense, again, to your audience, which you were talking so much about in the beginning, you give the sense that none of those options are viable to pursue if you wanted to solve the problem.
Well, anything is viable to pursue. You can pursue whatever you want. It's not
You
relevant.
can, but some things are going to be a waste of time, obviously.
That's not relevant at all. Lots of things are a waste of time. They're still viable to pursue. But that's like, you can't like prove what's a waste of time before we investigate it. That's not possible. But that's not relevant to anything we've been talking about. I have no idea what we're even talking about right now. So the consensus in physics is infinite regress, because there's no reason to think there's a beginning, and we don't think everything causes itself. That doesn't make any sense. So physics just says infinite regress. That's the best explanation we got. Necessary beings aren't a coherent thing in physics. There's nothing in physics that indicates any necessary being, so that's not even an option in physics.
Well, obviously, we'd be talking about metaphysics at that point.
Well, physics is limited to things that can be demonstrated, or physics can only use combinations of principles, particles, and laws that have been demonstrated to exist independent of our imagination. Necessary beings are no such thing. Therefore, they are not allowed in physics.
Yeah. So, for instance, if I were to ask you, like, the variables of physics have, such and such a value. Logically, they could have been different. How come they are as they are? What would your answer be?
What said again?
It's a fine-tuning problem, right? The variables of physics have such and such a values. They're very finely tuned, as they say, right? If they were different, then the world as we know it would not exist. Most combinations of the variables end up with empty worlds. It would seem then that this world is special. How come this world exists?
I would say a determining force is entangling them, causing them to come up with the numbers that they are currently at.
So that's some kind of ground. So, but what is that?
What do you mean? What is it? It's a force.
What is the entangling force? Yeah, can you give me some more details on that?
Well, I can call it Bob if you want. Call it the Bob force. Like what else? What are you looking for?
Is that what you would like to call it?
You can call it whatever you want. It's just a name. I don't know what you're asking when you're asking for more information
I'm trying
about
to understand your view. I'm obviously trying to understand your view.
So there's a force. It's a physical force, and it
Physical.
Yeah, physical. Everything is physical. I'm a physicalist, materialist. Everything is physical. So there's a physical force, and it
Uh-huh.
entangles the other forces
Okay,
like a
okay.
Hoberman sphere. And so any change in one will cause a proportional change in the other ones.
And so the physical force is just a brute fact.
Sure, I'm happy with that.
Well, no, is that what you think though?
I don't really have a position on brute fact, necessary being infinite regress. I don't care. None of it's relevant.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to ask though, because I'm trying to get a picture so that I can continue the discussion. Because it seems like my assumptions about what you were thinking were wrong, right? So trying to get down a better picture of what it is that you are actually thinking, right? So you're
So
saying
my position
there's
is that Agrippa's trilemma is a garbage waste of time, and it's not a relevant question to reality. At least
I
not
don't,
yet.
again, I'm just trying to get a picture of your view of what's going on here. So this entangling force, does it have an entangling force? And so on and so on and so on.
I don't know. I don't care.
Okay. It doesn't seem like you know anything about it then. I don't even know why you're positing it.
You don't need to know what it's made of to know things about it. That's not how
It
objects
doesn't
work.
seem like you do know anything about it. You're just positing it ad hoc as it's something that brings things together, essentially.
You asked for an explanation of the fine tuning. Here is my most likely explanation of the fine tuning.
That's
And the
not
way,
an explanation. It doesn't even explain anything.
yes, it does. Like an explanation is, here is a prior set of facts that cause the current set of facts. So if there is a prior set of facts where there's an entangling force that causes all the other forces to be entangled in such a way that you can't deviate them.
At best, it is an explanation sketch. Okay,
No,
it is missing
that's all
critical
an explanation.
details.
Explanations are hypotheses. That's it. You don't need any data.
Explanations typically have details. They don't have missing places.
No, that's not in any way. Like explanations in science is just a hypothesis. You can have a hypothesis of anything you want.
It's a hypothesis.
God done
my
it
point
is an explanation.
My point is saying, like, there's a force that entangles them, and then when you're asked, how does it do that? What is the nature of this force? Does it depend on anything, etc.?
Yeah, you don't need any of that. That's not relevant. No one in physics
Those are
cares.
all details.
No one
Those
cares.
are all details.
No one cares.
What do you know about it?
So
what do you know?
You're misunderstanding relevancy in science here. We don't need to know anything about it. Dark matter, dark energy, we know nothing about it. We know it causes this phenomenon. What's it made of? I don't know. It's made of WIMPs. Does that work?
I mean, dark matter is like an ephemeral object. It's essentially a label for something we don't understand. That doesn't seem comparable to what we're talking about.
No. So we know dark matter is a thing, and there are potential explanations like maybe it's a WIMP, maybe it's a
dark matter is.
We
don't know it's a thing. Dark matter is what we call the observed mismatch.
Oh my God, I don't want to have to educate you on basic physics here. Yes, dark matter is a label of a phenomenon. And then we have explanations.
It's a label for specifically.
Stop talking.
What have we observed? What is it that we observed?
Interrupting. Dark matter is a label. And there are explanations of that label. There's a phenomenon. Then we have explanations of the phenomenon. God did it is an explanation of the phenomenon. Maybe there are magical fairies that are pushing things to cause dark matter. That's an explanation of the phenomenon. Explanation is just anything that can cause the perceived phenomenon. That's it. There's no extra criteria on that. You need to know nothing about it.
Yes, I know.
How did the magical pixies work? I don't know. Who cares?
Okay, but here's the difference. Your version is there's a magical something, and magical pixies.
There is a physical something.
Yes, exactly. Something, not pixies. Right. So in your own analogy, you gave me specifics. Pixies. Yes. That's what we expect in an explanation.
That's not a specific.
Yes, it is. It's the specific entity that is doing it.
Oh my God, that's so dumb. So if I say pixies and you say, what are pixies made of? Like, I don't know. And so if I say law of physics, you say, what is law of physics?
Well, I already have an idea. That's the thing is, I already have some idea about what pixies are. Whereas when you're talking about this force, I have no idea what you mean. So why don't you tell me what you do know about it? How about that?
So force refers to a thing cause that's like a quantum relation between stuff. That's all a force is.
I don't think force is given the necessary quantum definition, but sure. Force is usually anything that acts. Right? Anything that acts on other molecules.
So all forces are physical things. They are physical relations between things. Every single one of them. So if I say there is a force in quantum fields, it's a physical relation between the quantum fields. That's it.
No, I know, but usually when someone posits a force or a field or something, they have some notion of what it would be like.
No, they don't. You just don't understand physics. No, they don't.
For instance, the Higgs boson field. For example, that's a specific description of what that field is like.
No, it's not. Again, you don't understand
Yes, it
physics.
is.
There are lots of things posited in physics where people have no idea what they're like. They just add stuff in randomly to see if it works.
I'm not saying no one ever posits something without knowing everything about it, okay? I'm just saying
there are
that
people who posit things that have known nothing about it. It's just an abstract, we don't
Yeah,
know what
I
it
know
is,
that.
and they throw it in, and
Acknowledge
it's
that.
fine. Literally, one
Yes,
example
I
is
just
Pauli.
acknowledge
Pauli
that.
did this, Dirac did this. He just threw in a number.
I
So
just-
here is a thing, and I don't know what it is. I'm going to throw it in, and it works. I like it, and you're done. Your criterion of this adding extra questions about it is bullshit. No one cares. No one cares in physics. No one cares in science. It literally doesn't matter. You have this extra question set that is just irrelevant.
I thought you were. That's the thing. I'm finding it so confusing. I thought you were supposed to be a philosopher.
Yes.
I don't really care what scientists care about. Okay, I happen to care as to whether you are able to provide an adequate sketch of the explanatory entity you're appealing to, this force. And so far, you have not been able to.
No, again, you don't understand the philosophy or the physics here. So why a force, saying that it's like a physical force, is a better explanation than like fairies or anything else is because we have previously demonstrated forces are a real thing that exists in the universe independent of our imagination. Therefore, forces are a class of objects that we can use for potential explanations. So I can say there's a new force we haven't discovered yet, and I know nothing about it, and that's a legitimate explanation because we've demonstrated forces exist.
No, it's just a speculation. That's all it is.
Every hypothesis is a speculation. That's a stupid thing to say. So
yes,
I can't in physics and philosophy, I can't say fairies did it. I can't say a fairy caused dark matter. That will be thrown out of a paper. If I say an unknown force causes dark matter, that's acceptable because forces have been demonstrated to exist independent of our imagination. So it is a class of things we can use as potential explanation. We can't use classes of things that have not been demonstrated to exist.
If that's all you had to say in the paper, no one would read it. Most people are interested in what you think.
There are literally papers about this.
Yes, I feel like you're really not listening to me.
No, you don't understand anything I'm saying here. Like there are papers that say it's an unknown force, period, full stop.
A couple of times now, you've basically just dismissed what I've been saying, refused to engage with it, and your justification is...
I gave you an answer.
And your justification is, I'm just apparently ignorant about the science and the philosophy and all. If you say so, man. To me,
if I give you an answer, if I give you an answer, here is the answer, and you say, well, I want more. It's like, there isn't more. That's sufficient answer. But you're saying, I don't think it's sufficient. I don't care. You don't get an opinion. This is sufficient, whether you think it is or not.
That's what a debate is. What do you mean? Of course I get an opinion. That's what a debate is.
No. So like if there's an actual academic standard and the standard is met, then the fact that you want more than that standard is
I don't believe you're meeting the standard. It's just a fact. It's just your opinion that you're meeting the standard.
This is why I'm telling you, you're ignorant of the field. I don't care what you think. I've given you the standard. Here's an academic standard that I've met. And so if whether you want more or not, I don't care. I'm done. I've met my job. I'm done. Published the paper, done. You want more? I don't care.
All right. Yeah, so it seems like what you're saying is like you're willing to leave an explanatory gap.
There is necessarily always an explanatory gap in literally everything. That's what Agrippa's trilemma proves.
If you say so. I mean, I understand the trilemma quite well. I understand it as posing an epistemological difficulty, not a proof that there will always be anything. To me, that's you just kind of talking out your ass. But anyway,
yes, again, this is again just you being ignorant of the topic. The point of Agrippa's dilemma is any epistemology, any knowledge claim is going to rest on one of three types of claims. Each of these three types of claims has an explanatory gap that it can't overcome. Foundationalism is arbitrariness.
That's the position of the trilemma, is that it's a difficulty, not that it can't be overcome. That it doesn't say that.
That's literally the point.
That's not what it says. It says you have to make a choice and figure out how to make the choice work.
No.
Each choice comes with problems. That's why it's a trilemma.
Oh my God. Each choice comes with problems. That's the explanatory gap. Those problems are the explanatory gap.
No,
and every single
there's no necessary proof in the trilemma that those are insoluble.
It doesn't matter if they're insoluble. Right now, they can't be solved. Right now, every single claim has an explanatory
that's not what
gap.
you said. You made a claim. You made the claim that there will always be an explanatory gap. You made the claim that there will always.
Stop talking. In every epistemology that any human ever comes up with at this point will have one of these three flaws, and one of these three flaws has an explanatory gap. I don't care if it can be solved in the future. Any epistemology any human ever comes up with is stop talking. Any epistemology any human comes up with will fail for one of these three reasons, and it will have an explanatory gap. Whether it can be solved in the future is dumbass irrelevant. I don't care.
No, it's not. No, it's
yes,
not. Your statement,
it's literally irrelevant.
Your statement was unqualifiedly arrogant. That's the issue.
No, it's based on current knowledge. Currently,
exactly,
and
no solution. Based on current knowledge, demonstrating an attitude of closure towards what could happen in the future.
That's all we have is current knowledge. We don't have future knowledge.
Yes, but we have to be open. We have to be, as an epistemologist, you have to be open to the fact that in the future things might.
I'm muting you on my end, so I don't have to listen to you speak anymore. So you're a dumbass. We'll start with that because it's fun. Secondly, it doesn't make a difference what we can or cannot learn in the future. I don't care. It's a waste of my time. What matters is with all of the knowledge, all human knowledge we have today, it's going to rest on the three problems. Each one has an explanatory gap, which means guess what? All worldviews have an explanatory gap. All human worldviews, in every single one of them, every idea, every human idea has an explanatory gap. So your dumbass criticism that mine has an explanatory gap because I have like a brute fact of nature or whatever isn't a criticism. It's a nothing. Guess what? They all have that. I don't care. This is why your dumbass criticism is not relevant to anything in the conversation. I don't care if there's an explanatory gap. They all have an explanatory gap. And until you solve the mysteries of the universe, they will all have an explanatory gap. So saying mine does isn't a relevant criticism. Moron. Still have you muted.
About a recording is that anyone who is interested in this can go back and listen and see for themselves.
All right, I'm just going to mute him. I'm done with the debate. It's been about an hour. Anything else from the mods? Who was the other guy? So, other mod guy, Auden, did you have anything else planned, or can I go now? Were you gonna do like an audience Q&A or something?
What'd you say?
Do we have anything else planned? Are we gonna do an audience Q&A or something?
Yeah, we can have an audience Q&A. Are you guys done with the debate?
Yeah, I'm done talking to him. It's too dumb.
Okay, so whoever has questions, I guess you guys could, ask. Oh, Simo has a question.
Oh shit! Yeah, I got my shit, bro. Y'all can hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, this is for Insinq. So how do you think you did this debate? Like, how do you think you fared up against Mr. TJump?
I guess it depends on what you mean. Like, as to the question, is religion true? Like, I didn't think I was going to necessarily win that at all. As far as the disagreements that the digressions took us into, honestly, like, just, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but honestly, in the last 20 minutes or so, I felt it was like 80% sophistry, and I think I held my own really quite well against that. Prior to that, I think it was, I feel like TJump won a lot of the points because the debate's kind of like not defined in my favor. So, but apart from
Okay, who else from the crowd would like to come up and ask a question? But let me see. Okay, back to the basics. Let me see. Oh, look, wait, the kid 1125 would like to ask a question.
Hold up. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
This is a question for TJump. TJump, so I know you do like a lot of IRL debating. Will you ever do like a Naruto debate?
I guess I probably wouldn't be very good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do
That's
anything
fine.
with
That's
paid, so you pay me, I'll do it.
oh shit. Okay, bet. All right, that's all I really wanted to know.
Okay. That the kid. I'm gonna drag up somebody named Back to the Basics. Go back to the basics. What would you like
I
to
just have
say?
a question. I have a question for Insinq. Like, when you call people mud huts in the hard R, what were your thoughts on that? Like, especially racist white. Like,
Okay. I was gonna say, does anybody else have any like questions, actual questions? Like, no.
Yeah, I got a question.
Okay. What's your
This
question?
one's for Insync. I guess on TJump. Why not pick like a different topic if you didn't think that you were gonna win this topic? Like, why not pick like something like, is religion useful or is
Yeah.
religion good for society? Rather, is religion true? Since you both are atheists.
So what happened was, I was asked for a list of topics. I actually just took a list of topics I'd submitted in a debate I did recently on my server, Nameless Debates. So I just copy pasted that and added some. So I'd originally like outlined the topics for that, and then TJump selected 2 of a list of like more than a dozen and sent those back to me, but he actually adjusted the wording of one of the options. So it was originally determinism versus free will. That's what I was willing to debate in favor of either side, and he wanted to debate in favor of determinism, but he changed the wording to libertarian free will, and I wasn't intending on arguing for libertarian free will. So it felt like my only option really was to just go with the one the only other one of the 2 that he'd chosen.
That's crazy. That shouldn't even been an option in the first place, to be honest. But yeah, I'm thinking that's my question.
I didn't mind. I thought it was a pretty fun, yeah, pretty fun.
Okay. So Jester would like to ask a question. And then Jester, would you like to put on your mic?
Yeah, this question is for TJump. TJump right here.
No.
Okay, for sure. Is Darth Arianis easily one of the stupidest people you've ever debated, or nah?
No, I don't think he's stupid. I mean, the stupidest people would probably be like Mr. Batman. He'd be up there. Mango would be up there. But I don't think Darth Arianis is stupid. I think that
What about D1?
I don't even know who that is, but I think Darth Arianis' problem is that he's too focused on the complicated semantics of philosophy without trying to break it down into simple terms, which makes his arguments pretty gibberish. And so he can't express the argument he's trying to make well or coherently.
All right, thank you.
This is a question for me, TJump. I was gonna ask, do you recall ever debating a person called Spurred King? And if you did, what would you rank their debate skill on a scale of 1 to 10?
I don't remember at all.
Okay. Any other questions for either? Or oh yeah, TJump. There's this guy named Apollo who considers himself the best debater of all time. Would you ever consider debating him? Taking him on?
If anybody pays me, I'll do any debate on any topic. I don't care.
Okay. Next question. Well, just back to the Spur King thing. The debate was about moral realism, and he's the same guy who asked you to prove that he could feel whether or not like you could feel you were fat. Do you remember that?
Nope. I have done hundreds of debates on moral realism, so it does not in any way ring a bell. And it also sounds like the average Discord debate, which I do like every Sunday, so it's really does not narrow it down very much.
Okay. Let's see. Somebody has a question okay, Spiral has a question.
Yeah, hello. TJump, can you hear me?
Yep.
When you was facing your opponent, did you believe that you had more knowledge in like quantum physics and physics in general?
Generally I do than most average people. I don't know anything about Insinq or anything, so I have no idea.
All right, thank you.
Any other? Let me see. There are some other questions in chat. TJump, I'm gonna Well, can you check evidence channel?
I don't know how to do that.
Okay. Reaper asked how much money you'd want for a debate.
$75 is my average fee, usually like 75 an hour-ish.
Okay. Ken Rock asked, how would he get a hold of Dawkins for a debate? Darth Dawkins.
I think he's on Clubhouse now, so I haven't seen him in any Discord servers in a while, so you'd probably have to go to Clubhouse.
Okay. Okay, Truth has a question. Why do black people take up 13% of the population but do 50% of the crime?
Poverty, economic, being held back, systemic racism, lots of reasons.
Okay.
And someone mentioned to me there's like some kind of, I don't know, 5-minute interview. I thought that was going to happen before, but is that happening or no? Because otherwise I'll probably jet.
We'll do it after. But Reaper would like to ask if you're a logical pluralist.
Logical pluralist? Like
Yeah.
that there's multiple forms of logic?
Yeah.
I think there's one correct form of logic.
Okay. What is there any other questions you guys have? I'm gonna say okay, somebody else has a question, they're typing it out. But I was gonna say, okay, so I guess I will. Can you check messages, TJump, to see the thing I was talking about?
What?
Your
I
DMs.
don't use Discord that much.
The Spur King guy. Okay, Kai J asked, why did both debaters become atheists and how did they come away from religion? What would they say to their younger selves about the subject?
So I became an atheist. I started off as Christian and I prayed to God every day because I believed there was no powerful, loving being, didn't do anything. So I stopped being able to believe. Then I didn't become an atheist until like 4 or 5 years later when I started researching philosophy and got the arguments in. So that would be my answer, I guess. What would I say to my younger self? I'd probably tell myself about poop donation. Greatest job ever. Pays like $2 to $4 grand a month and you just donate your poop. Amazing. I don't know what else. Sugar daddy websites, amazing, phenomenal. Lottery numbers for sure. Who would win the Super Bowl? Those would be things I would most likely tell myself.
Okay. The kid would like to ask in chat, what are your thoughts on people who debate, who just appeal to possibility and don't actually take an affirmative stance?
It would depend on the debate because like possibility is a perfectly valid argument for like Bayesian epistemology, like when you're trying to say this is more probable than the other one. So I don't know. It would depend on specifically the context of whatever argument they were trying
Fictional
to make.
debates.
What? Oh, you mean like Naruto and stuff?
Yeah, like things that require evidence to justify your claims most of the time.
Evidence is good. I'm not sure what the question is then.
Like what in a debate, like a fictional debate where it things like possibilities are kind of like irrelevant when you present probability. How do you feel about people who rather just present possibilities rather than taking an affirmative stance?
Well, again, that is an affirmative stance. So like if you're claiming like a necessary being is a being that exists in all possible worlds. And so if you're talking about possible world semantics and you're saying that there is one possible world where there is no God, that is a perfectly valid argument to debunk a necessary being. So possibility is perfectly fine if you're using it in the right context. But if the question is like, it's possibly we're in the matrix or something, therefore there is no external world, and they're saying hyper skepticism arguments, then no, those aren't very good arguments.
Okay. The best center asked, how would you respond to a constant regression of someone calling arguments into question?
That would be fine. I would, because my epistemology rests on I think therefore I am. So That would be, if they tried that on me like a precept does, I'm going to rest on the case that it's impossible for me to believe I exist and be wrong, which is a termination of the infinite regression. They can't question that anymore, because if they do, they look stupid.
Okay. Spiral asked, how long would it take you to obtain the knowledge, or how long would it take him to obtain the knowledge you have on physics? And how old are you? And if you don't mind, disclosing the information, then please share.
I'm 34. I have no idea. Like, depends on how much reading and how good he is at reading and retaining information. I don't know.
Okay. Any other questions? Insinq, a question for you from Ember. Isn't Darth Dawkins in your server regularly?
Yeah, he actually is. Just so everyone knows.
Okay.
Okay, seriously though, like one or two more questions, because this is boring.
Okay. Reaper asked, what's the best method to learn philosophy?
Look at the distinction. So the most significant contributions for philosophy is made to any relevant conversation is the distinctions that many philosophers have instituted. So like 101 Insinq mentioned was the noumenal phenomenal distinction by Kant. That's a really good one. Analytic synthetic distinction, a priori posteriori distinction, manifest for scientific image. Those are all really good distinctions. All the different kinds I have a list of them on my Discord in the suggested reading of about 50 of the different distinctions philosophers have made. Those are pretty good. So like the sense reference distinction, the Isaac Asimov has a 3 distinction, but they're all like a sentence long. The Aunsbau, I forget the German for it, but it's a kind of empiricism distinction. Saying versus showing distinction. There's all the distinctions. The distinctions are the most concise way to gain clear knowledge from philosophy that isn't a useless waste of time. Don't read Hegel.
Okay. Question from Synthetic. Who is the best debater you've debated?
Kind of depends. Like Professor Rob Koons is probably the world's leading expert on Thomism. My first debate against him, I would say I didn't do very well, and I had to catch up for the second debate I did with him, which I think I did much better on. I've done debates with cosmologists, Jeff Zweerink, Hugh Ross, but I think I was just too tired for the Hugh Ross one. Luke Barnes, Randall Rouser, I think, is a really smart philosopher. So just all the professor guys, I think, are really good, at least intellectual. I don't know if they're very good rhetoricians, good at rhetoric, which I think is what makes you a good debater, is if you're good at rhetoric. But I think they're intellectually the highest quality debaters I've had.
Okay. Question from Lazy for Insinq and TJump. I guess TJump you can answer after Insinq. How useful do you think philosophy is, and do you think it would be beneficial for most people to read up on philosophy?
Yeah, I think philosophy is extremely beneficial, and if anyone is looking to get into it, I would recommend The Last Days of Socrates as a place to start.
I would say no, don't waste your time. Do something you enjoy better.
Okay. The kid asked for your stance on gun control.
It works. All the evidence shows gun control works in every country that's instituted it. Gun crime goes down, deaths go down. It's scientifically proven to work. America's stupid.
Okay. Question for both Insinq and TJump from Tim. Since the path to becoming an atheist, have you guys ever considered diving into religions that don't necessarily acknowledge God? For example, religions such as Buddhism or Daism.
So, I mean, I'm, as my stance in the debate might have indicated, I personally am very appreciative of a variety of religious traditions. I think Taoism is one of the most based philosophies that's ever been invented. Buddhism has some really interesting techniques, meditation, mindfulness, stuff like that, that I think related to getting close to mystical experiences. But I myself don't have an aversion to like God concepts, except insofar as the people who believe in them are very rigid about what that means.
So I actually started a religion, a secular atheist religion. So yes, I'm totally for that. I think religions are very beneficial. I actually had a debate with Aaron Ra on this, where it was, did religion cause more harm and good in the world? And I took that's caused more good. So I'm pro religion when it doesn't involve pedo priests.
Okay. Next question from Woski. For TJump, have you lost any notable debates in your opinion? If so, against who and why?
Notable debates in my, oh, have I lost any debates in my opinion? Gotcha. Yeah, I've lost a few debates. I lost 9/11 debate because I just didn't do as much research against Ryan Dawson. I lost a COVID debate against Oliver something German or something. Same reason, I just didn't do enough research. I think I lost my first debate against Rob Coons, maybe. Those are the top three that come to mind. And my first debate against Randall, or my second debate against Randall Rouser, talking about fallibilism, he was right on that one. Those are the ones I can remember off the top of my head.
Okay. I was gonna say, what was the 9/11 debate on?
Was it a conspiracy?
Okay.
And he did a lot of research into that. I didn't take it seriously at all. So I was not prepared for him to bring actually decent arguments.
Okay, so next question from Mr. Solos for TJump. Who is your favorite philosopher?
Myself, pretty much. I don't really have a favorite philosopher. I have favorite specific ideas that philosophers have had, which are those distinctions I mentioned earlier, but I don't have a favorite philosopher. I have particular ideas from each philosopher I like, but I don't really care about them as people.
Okay. Question from Ember for Insinq. What do you think about debaters who in debates often resort to calling a person stupid or ignorant?
I guess it depends. Sometimes the other person is ignorant and is being stupid or whatever. And I think that can be a last resort sometimes if like you repeat yourself again and again and someone's just not getting it or something like that. But I think I don't know. I think in other circumstances, it comes out where someone isn't sure how to respond and they're getting frustrated about that. And also, I guess when you like dismiss someone else as stupid and uneducated or whatever, but aren't giving a clear reason, like as to what they don't understand or as to like what specifically they're lacking because a lot of the time it can just be a broad strokes dismissal. Yeah.
Okay. Next question from Synthetic for Insinq. Who is the best debater in your opinion?
I don't know. I don't really keep track of that kind of thing.
Okay. Question for TJump from Omar Kane. About religions. How do you feel about religions that worship a king or emperor as God?
I think it's silly, but I think it's no more silly than worshiping a fictitious being who created the universe. Probably less silly than worshiping a fictitious being that no one's ever seen.
Okay. Question from Reaper for TJump. What's your opinion when it comes to quantum fluctuations and if they actually exist?
They've been proven to exist. So, Casimir effect, we know quantum fluctuations 100% exist.
Okay. Oh yeah, here we go. A question from Terrence Watts. He asks, so you're a physicalist. Can one derive truth or correspondence from a system that has an emergent property of virtual what? Okay. He said, like the holographic principle, can you derive correspondence of reality through the map rather than the territory directly?
So the holographic principle states that anything in a 3D space can be represented on a 2D surface of a sphere. That's what the holographic principle states. I have no idea how that relates to his question. So I think like he is kind of like a matrix argument that how the fact that everything could be drastically different but come up with the same empirical facts mean, can you still derive truth? Yes, you can still derive truth because knowledge doesn't require 100% certainty. That's the position of fallibilism. Fallibilism is the consensus among philosophers and scientists. You don't need certainty for knowledge. So yes, you can still derive truth and knowledge even though you don't have 100% certainty.
Okay. Question from Mr. Solos. Who is your favorite Instagram model
It's a tough one.
for TJump?
That's a tough one. Even in Hilamele, she's really hot. I'll go with that one.
Okay. Question from Lazy Nader. Are you looking for a new Instagram model girlfriend?
Always. Like more than one. Give me like 6, 7. I'll still be looking for another one. Always.
Okay. Question from Longleaf for TJump and Insinq. What's a political hot take that you guys have?
Social justice is garbage.
Okay.
I don't know.
Reaper asked TJump, what's your opinion on objective morality?
I'm a moral realist, so I believe there is objective morality. I don't think there's any concrete evidence for this. It's just a hypothesis, but I believe it's true because I like it.
Okay. Question for TJump from I think it was Spiral. Do you guys believe that there are two genders?
Yeah, yes. Depends on how you define gender. If you define it as synonymous with sex, then yes, there's at least two, and there's multiples for other species. But yes, there are two genders. And if you define it as a psychological state, there can be more than that, but I prefer the biological state. So I go with the two. I like two.
Okay. Any other questions? I'm just gonna have the chat type in. Okay, Omar Kane asked TJump what you think about the current state of the debate community.
It's fine. I think that debate is a form of entertainment. So asking like what about the current state of the debate community is like asking what about the current state of the football community. It's like if that's what the fans enjoy, then it's fine the way it is. And if you want it different, create a new one. And if they like it, they'll go to you.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so question from Reaper for TJump. Do you think you would beat Cosmic Skeptic?
In a debate or a fight? In a fight, absolutely. In a debate, he talks nice. He has a pretty voice and he uses lots of exasperated language, but his points are not as good as mine. No.
Okay. Question from Lazy for TJump. Do you believe that transgender women are real women?
Based on the biological definition, not necessarily. It's possible. So like there are conditions where women will have male genitalia, and that's because it forms due to genetic how genes develop. And the brain, your brain, there are different kinds of brains for males and females, and so literally a female brain can develop in a male body in the same way male or female genitalia can develop in the opposite gender body. So it is possible. There are cases where a brain structure will form that is not the same as the genes of the individual, in which case a woman brain can form in a man's body and vice versa, though I think it's a small minority. I don't think it's the number equivalent to the people who identify as trans.
Okay. Question from Spiral for TJump. Do you think women get paid less because of the jobs they choose or just because of their sex?
Because of the jobs they choose. That was shown. Jordan Peterson had a really good example of that, how the countries that instituted the greatest amount of sexual equality actually had a greater pay gap because more women chose to go into less paid fields because they enjoyed them more. So yes, I think that the primary reason is more the choice of job, not because of sexism.
Okay. Question for TJump from Tim. Are you a more conservative or liberal or somewhere outside of that?
Center left. So me and Destiny have a very similar political view.
Okay. Synthetic question for Insinq. What's your thoughts on Trini?
He's a sophist. I don't have many thoughts on him.
Okay. Question from Omar Kane for TJump. Whether you would consider abortion a form of self-defense?
Yes.
Okay. Question for Insinq from Reaper. On if you think you would slam Trini's face in.
I don't care about shit.
Okay. Terrence Watts, question for TJump. What would you name / call the successor of conceptualization, and how would you imagine it Asmai in realty? Realty?
I have no idea what that's asking. I would call it Bob.
Okay.
I'm going to call it Bob.
Okay. Question from NATO. I don't know what his name is, but yeah, NATO. For TJump, what's the latest a fetus can be aborted?
Leave that up to the experts in the field for doctors and lawyers to determine.
Okay. Mr. Solo's question for TJump. Why are you so sexy?
Magic.
Question for TJump from my fault, Synthetic. What age did you lose your virginity?
I don't remember.
Okay. Question from Reaper. What's your positions on business mail as a debater?
Who?
Business mail. Do you know who that is?
Nope.
Oh, business email. My fault.
I still,
Why'd you type it in one word? Anyway, business email. Sorry. Business email.
I still don't understand the question. Is that a person?
Yeah.
Still have no idea who that is.
Okay, question from Spiral for Insinq and TJump. Do you guys support the LGBTQ community?
As people, yes, they're humans. They deserve the same rights as any human. I don't think we should give them more rights than other humans.
I don't really care about the LGBTQ issues.
Okay. Question for TJump from Lazy Nader. Are you currently in a relationship or are you single?
I'm in a relationship, like a friends with benefits kind of thing, not like a girlfriend or an exclusive thing.
Okay. Question from Tamaki for TJump. Who is the best female debater that you know?
Gutset Gibbon.
Okay. Question from NATO for TJump. Do you think Andrew Tate is innocent?
No idea. I've researched nothing into it. He's guilty of something. Absolutely guilty of something. I have no idea what it is. I haven't researched it.
Guilty of cringe. That's what he's guilty of.
Okay. Question for Insinq from Terrence Watts. Do you think an objective moral framework is possible?
Me? No.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a moral realist, but I think the notion of moral objectivity, so to speak, is quite confused.
Okay. Question for TJump from Lazy Nader. Would you smash Godless Girl?
No, not it would require a significant sum of money.
Okay.
Like in the millions.
Tim, question for he didn't specify. I'll just say TJump. Thoughts on the Matrix? If you think it exists, and how do we get out?
Not yet. We will in the future, and it'll be optional, and you can leave whenever you want.
Okay. The questions are still rolling in. NATO asked, has a question for TJump. What are your opinions on gay marriage?
Absolutely fine. We should make it legal everywhere.
Okay. More questions are coming through.
Yeah, I'm going to go in 2 minutes, just saying.
Okay. Longleaf has a question for TJump. How much money do you make?
I work 4 jobs right now. So YouTube, I just got demonetized last month, which sucks. Hopefully I'll get that back. But most of my money comes from PayPal and Patreon anyway, so it's not a huge deal. I do chess coaching, which pays $35 to $100 an hour, depending on the school. I do poop donation, which pays like $2,000 a month, which is phenomenal. I recently got offered a job as a engineering assembly technician, something. And so depending on how much of those I do in a month, I get paid about 6 figures.
Okay. Question for TJump from Spiral. Thoughts on Latinas?
Gorgeous. The one I'm dating right now is a Native American Latina, Honduras.
Mr. Solos has a question for Insinq. Can you accept my friend request? You have me added on my old account.
All right, I'm out of here. See you later.
Okay. Question from Kai J for Insinq and TJump. As an atheist, will either of you teach your children about atheism or let them come to their own conclusion on religion as they come to question their beliefs when they're older?
There isn't really much to teach them about atheism, so you can't really teach them anything. I'll teach them about morality. Like I wrote a model of morality as a moral realist, and that'll teach them.
Okay. Question for TJump from Woski. Where would you say is the best place to meet a woman?
Depends what your goals are.
Okay. Wow, these are a lot of questions are coming through. So question
No more questions, please.
for TJump from Reaper. What's your sexuality?
Straight heterosexual.
Okay. Question from Tanwin to TJump. How do you feel about Insinq saying the N-word as a white man?
So I'm a free speech, like hardcore free speeches, so I don't really have an issue with saying the N-word. I think that it's not good that people can be banned for saying words on the internet.
Okay. Question from Spiral for TJump. What is your ELO in chess?
2000.
Okay. Longleaf has a question for TJump. How do you donate poop?
So, well, first you take your pants off, and you sit, and then you poop, and it's in a bucket, and then you hand the bucket over to the people. It's great. You Google it. Google poop donation locally near you. There's usually a couple places there.
Okay. Question for TJump from Lazy Space. What do you think is the most important attribute to be a man?
There isn't one. I don't care. It's not important to be a man. So
Okay. Question from Omar Kane for TJump. Do you think automatic firearms should be banned for all citizens?
I think that would be potentially beneficial for society. I think handguns are the things that we should probably focus on banning. Should ban handguns, but all firearms would be good to ban. I mean, we know it works. There are many countries that have done it, and so because it's been proven to work in the past, it's a good policy to implement in the future. And that's my standard or criterion: is that if it's been proven to work, then we should do it.
Okay. Question for TJump from Terrence Watts. How do you think of thinking who you are to be who you are?
What?
That's his question. No, literally, that's his question.
I'm going to guess this has to do with I think therefore I am. So the argument is it's impossible for me to have the belief I exist and be wrong. So I have a belief I exist, and the I just refers to the thing doing the thinking. So you have an experience, a direct experience. That's also a form of thought. So it's a thought in your brain. So it's impossible for you to have that experience and not exist at the same time. What you're made of, it doesn't say anything about.
Okay. Question for TJump from Spiral. Do you believe you could have caught Light Yagami?
I don't like. L in Death Note.
Yeah.
Yes, I would have a plan specifically to be yeah, it'd be easy to catch him actually. Yes.
Okay.
So all you'd have to do is cut his hands off, cut his legs off. I mean, if you kill him and no one else dies, you've caught him. He's done. Problem solved. So like the problem with those is that with the detectives, they're stuck with these moral guidelines. If you just had a dictator who just shoot everyone who's suspected, problem solved. You're done. You'd find him real fast.
Okay. Question for TJump from Perfect. Do you think people should feel bad for committing justified immoral acts?
Yes, sort of. So I think that they should acknowledge. I don't know if they should. I don't care what they feel. What they should acknowledge that it's immoral and do and atone for that immorality. Regardless of what they feel, they should recognize that it's immoral and try to atone for it if possible.
Okay. Question for TJump from Synthetic. What are your thoughts on sperm donating as a hustle?
It's great. It's harder to get accepted though. You need like a college education. You need to be very healthy. So the acceptance rate is it has a high bar of acceptance, whereas poop donation is a very low bar of acceptance. Anybody can get in as long as you're under 50 and under 35 BMI.
Okay. Let me see. There's other questions. Let me just down. NATO has a question for you. Do you think the death penalty should be legal?
I think a death penalty that was more efficient and reliable would be fine. The death penalty in America is garbage. So I think that there are justifiable means to institute a death penalty if it's been demonstrated to work. I don't think that the American one does.
Okay. Question for TJump from Perfect. How do you not care about what they feel as you're appealing to their intuition as evidence?
Intuition is the phenomenon. So morality, when we use the word morality, what we're referring to is a feeling we get when we see somebody punch a baby. We say, oh, that's bad. Or when we see someone helping a lady, oh, that's good. That's what morality, fundamentally, the word refers to, is that set of phenomenon. Whatever morality is, there's going to be an answer. This is moral, this is immoral. And the fact of the matter will tell you that this is moral or immoral, independent of anything you feel. Whether you feel it makes no difference at all. That's what objective truth means. It's true independent of anything anyone feels. And so when I'm talking about objective morality, it is objectively the case that this is immoral. What someone feels literally doesn't matter. Considering what people feel would literally make that a subjective consideration. So I can't, by definition, consider what they feel when assessing what objective morality truly is.
Question for TJump. Spiral asks, do you think Light Yagami's initial plan was morally correct?
No, it was immoral. So like if you look at my model of morality, which I wrote, it's on my channel somewhere. Maybe I'm re-uploading all my videos, but it's that any action that is done to inflict or impose on other people's will without their consent is immoral, even if it's done to prevent greater imposition. So like if you kill one to save five, the act of killing one is an immoral action, even if the act of killing five is five moral actions. And so Light killing some people to cause good in itself is still immoral, even if it's a justified immoral action to try to achieve greater goods.
Okay. Question for you from Shot Kala. He said, could you tell TJump I don't understand how he thinks life doesn't have a creator and that you should look into Islam?
I've looked into Islam. It's probably one of the worst, least supported religions there is. There's no evidence life had a creator. All of the evidence has indicated that life came about by abiogenesis. And the reason for that is that evidence is novel testable prediction. So you can start with whatever hypothesis you want. God created life or abiogenesis created life. And the one that you can start with that can then make predictions about the future that we don't know yet and get it right is the one that has evidence. For example, there's a article called New Scientist, The Search for the First Replicator, where it shows in 1960, we predicted that we could find RNA that can reproduce without the need of proteins. In 1982, there was a scientist that literally discovered that here's an RNA molecule that we can find in nature that can reproduce without using proteins. Secondly, that I forget what the second prediction was in that paper, but it was something in, I think, 2001, where we discovered that RNA molecules can reproduce without codons or something. And that was then discovered by some Japanese guy. And so these predictions were made by abiogenesis, people who think that life came about by natural processes. And they predicted these facts before we knew them. So they said, if abiogenesis is true, here's something we're going to find in nature. And they looked and found it in nature, and that's evidence of abiogenesis. And that's never happened for God. There's no one who said, if God is true, here's what we're going to find, some new fact about the universe, and then look and found it. Doesn't happen. That's why God models are not taken seriously in any field of science.
Okay, so about 3 more questions left. Question from NATO for you. What would you have done with the Death Note?
Good question. What would I have done with it? I'd have to think about it. Like, there's a temptation to like eliminate dictators or whatever. But probably wouldn't have done anything with it. Probably would have found a way to cheat the system and kill the demons. That would have been interesting.
Okay. Question, or actually follow up from Shock Caller. He said, "Tell TJump he has a right to his belief, but to please not disrespect my religion. It was unnecessary."
Respect is earned, not given. Islam is one of the religions deserving the most disrespect because it's degrading to human and women's rights, child rights. What's Muhammad married a 6-year-old and raped a 9-year-old. There are horribly immoral things in religion. It does not deserve respect. Respect is earned, not given. You have to earn my respect. I'm not going to give it to you.
Okay. Question from Raw Rice. Do you think liking femboys is gay?
Depends. Like if you look at someone and you think that they're a woman and you're attracted to them because they have female features, then no, because you're just mistaken, and being mistaken is not gay in any way. If you know that they are men and you're attracted to them because they are men, that would potentially be.
Okay. Nell asked, "Do you prefer pineapple on pizza?"
No, that's objectively immoral. You will burn in hell.
Okay. Question for you from Terrence Watts. Is suicide a viable and moral choice to make since existence imposes on the will of entity?
Yes. So if someone wants to end their life, it is moral to help them to end their life. Assisted suicide is a moral thing to do. As long as they're in a rational state of mind and they are mature enough to consent, then people should have the right to end their life whenever they see fit.
So this is the last question, and this is the question from me. Would you ever judge like one of the inverse debates, like the Naruto debates, the fictional debates, if anybody ever called you
If I'm
to do
paid,
it?
I'll do anything if I'm paid.
Okay. All right. But with that being said, we can end the Q&A here. And thanks for showing up for FRA 10. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Thanks, guys. See you later. Hey guys, just wanted to give you an update. The dumbasses at YouTube still have not given me back my monetization because my debates were uploaded on other channels first. So even though they're of me with my content that I own, they're reused content. And under that policy, your entire channel gets demonetized if you're using reused content. So YouTube are dumbasses. Please support me here at my PayPal link, bit.ly/TomJump. It's case sensitive, so capital T, capital J. If you can, I'd really appreciate your support to make up for the idiots at YouTube. Thanks.